is 3:20 in the morning, and I have an interview at noon. So I was like, I'm going to sleep early. I went to bed at 9 because I just don't sleep anyway, and I'm like, I'm so tired. I went to sleep at 9 and I freaking woke up at 11, like, probably just nervous about this interview. I've been tossing and turning, can't fall asleep. Gotta be up at 6 anyway to get the kids off to school, so now it's just like, what's the point of even trying to sleep? But I ran into this chick, and I ran into her the other day when I was looking at these walk-ins and these braided soles. But this is the stuff that you will find on a lot of people's spiritual channels, and none of it looks like bullshit. I haven't seen this one yet, but I definitely want to go see that one. Oh, not right now, though.
All right, well, let's dive into this.
That's so loud. Jeez, oh whiz. I don't want to watch it now. But anytime they're talking about archetypes, now that I know who Carl Jung is, I know that they're probably talking about the archetypes that Carl Jung was speaking of. Trickster archetype, blah, blah, blah. I think that they've ruined the word woke. Me, coming from a conservative background, I can't stand the word woke. I think it should be awake, but that's just me. The word woke has just been ruined like all kinds of other stuff. I'm gonna find her one video. Sleep paralysis. Yeah, these freaking little grays. Incubuses. Succubuses. Why do you think Billie Eilish is out here? Coming from a background of sleep paralysis turned demonic. Yeah. Where's this one video? There are way too many people talking about walk-ins.
All right, so
The Christos avatar and the people from the Guardian Alliance can't stand this guy named Drunvalo Melchizedek he goes by. They all wonder what the hell happened to that dude. Well, I saw Aaron Dowdy have a video about him that he had a walk-in, and Abraham Lincoln had a walk-in. I think that came from the Law of One Raw books about Abraham Lincoln. But
so here's the thing with walk-ins. There are more than just what we have been told in terms of having these multidimensional or starseed walk-ins who are here to change the planet. Now, that's some pretty big shoes to fill if you ask me. So we are going to take a little bit wider look at what's truly going on with this, and hopefully you guys will walk away with a little bit of an expanded perspective. Oh, Jennifer's here. Nicole, hello. Hi, Katie. Hi, Lindsay. Nice to see you guys. Some new faces. This is awesome. Okay. James, hello. Deb, nice to see you. So let's get into this. There are many different kinds of walk-ins, and people throughout history have had multiple different names for them. So I'm going to break down the different kinds, how they affect our body, and how to determine where you might be on that scale. I'm going to use some really awful drawing using my mouse and a keyboard that'll hopefully ground this concept in for you guys. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll understand a little bit more about how important this concept is as we start into our awakening journey. So the first type of walk-in that I actually want to talk about are the ones who are human bound. So we have a really interesting phenomena in the human existence, which, albeit I've done quite a bit of channeling, I have not seen this in any other collective, in any other star belt, on any other planet to date. It seems to be an earthbound thing, whereby instead of us just coming in and having our friends show up on this planet, we decide to bring both of us into the same body. Some people will call this a braided soul, or they'll sometimes refer to the whole concept of twin flames. That's a whole other concept for another day. Don't get me started on that rant. For me, I just refer to it as a walk-in, because a lot of times what happens is these beings have created some kind of soul bond. We saw a lot of this happen from about 0 AD up until about the end of the 18th century. So what people were doing was practicing a lot of different kinds of magic and blood sacrifice and all of this crazy stuff that ended up creating these different contracts and soul bonds. So then, after that takes place, some of these people ushered words like, "Till death do us part," or "I'll be with you forever," or "I promise to never leave you," or "blood of my blood." And they go and, cut their palms and put their bloods together. And they make these agreements that they never want to be separated. Inside some of my clients, I have seen some incredible stories. Like, there are Akashic loops that will be shown whereby somebody has a walk-in with them because they decided they needed them to be safe, or they knew they had a big life contract coming up and they needed another being to walk right beside them, or literally in them, to get through it. Or they knew that they were going to have to go through one more abusive relationship before they went through their awakening cycle, and they needed that strength so they didn't exit. So some of those types of walk-ins, when it's two very human conscious level souls, now we all know we're bigger than that, but two human conscious level souls have a lot of love stories, savior stories, a lot of those big life lesson types of things where it comes to self-confidence and independence and all of this. So that's one type. In this type of walk-in, we see a lot of physical issues and mental diagnoses within the population. So one telltale sign every single time that somebody does have another soul with them in their body would be bipolarism, multi-personality, borderline, things like this. These are all indicative every single time. It has never not been true that there is another soul or more within the same physical vessel. These types of walk-ins can cause mental diagnoses, hard time processing, angel on one shoulder, devil on the other, indecision, feeling like we can't really make our own choices in life. A lot of times these particular types of soul bonds, we will find like we are constantly fighting to try and find our footing, and like we don't really understand who we are in the world and what we're supposed to become. This is because we are literally processing for two different soul stories who, for whatever gosh darn reason, decided they needed to incarnate together. So when I'm working with clients, this is the very first type of walk-in I actually look for, because it's so prevalent that I would say over 90% of the clients I've had has had at least one of these types of beings with them. In fact, I would go as far as to say any human who has a deep Akashic reservoir and has been incarnating into humanity over and over and over again is going to have one of these walk-ins with them. It's extremely rare for them not to. A lot of this came from when we were all in those, early days and decided that practicing all this blood magic and blood sacrifice and bonding and all sorts of different mysticism that went on at that time, we created a lot of cords and contracts that we didn't really realize what the repercussions would be. So that's walk-in type number one. We have another scenario that goes on where we can have a soul step into a body who is not an enlightened soul. This is where we would explain it as if it's an energetic match. So in this scenario, this walk-in might have this similar frequency to another being. We see this a lot when people are using narcotics, alcohol, any type of substance to numb themselves out, and especially if they are playing in lower vibrational frequency. Remember, lower vibrational doesn't equal bad, higher doesn't equal good, it's just a frequency. But if they are playing things like anger, guilt, shame, frustration, sadness, grief, and especially then if they are layering on any one of those narcotic substances where we are no longer in control of our body, we can be in a scenario where we are like a beacon for disincarnated souls.
If you would go watch that one video I had, Peter Michael or something like that, where they talk about soul loss, that's what I feel like she's talking about. When we're traumatized and when we're doing drugs and when we're doing terrible things in low frequency mode, pieces of our soul literally get expelled off. And then my cat's snoring. And then in the holes, dark entities, dark things will creep in and leech on. Totally makes sense.
I personally, just to give you guys the heads up on this one, am of the opinion that if we do not need to use drugs, alcohol, anything like that to alter our point of view and can still get to those heightened states of consciousness, that is the way to go. Anytime we're using something to alter who we are and how we feel, parts of us are heightened and other parts are depressed to let that take place. So we want to try and do this as organically as possible, as safely as possible, and using our own radar and our own system to make sure that we are not putting ourselves in trouble and attracting things that we don't necessarily want to attract. Hi, Karen. Oh, good. We have some more friends jumping on. And Sarah's here. Nice to see you guys. So in this type of walk-in, oftentimes what happens is the person has lost some level of consciousness in the here and now. They have used something to shift where they're at, whether that be an emotion loop over and over or some kind of substance. Hi, Dale. Hi, Dianna. And in this scenario, we have beings, usually human, who have died but didn't step out of this planet. So instead of them going and crossing over to the proverbial other side or deciding to reincarnate into another body, anything like this, instead they jump into the closest vibrational match body. And so I see this a lot with clients who have people who have jumped in where they've been afraid of death, didn't know where they were going. Their religious beliefs failed them at the end. And I'm saying failed like this because beliefs are fluid. Or this person really didn't want to go and they were hanging on. And so instead of jumping out and going through the process of transmutation, they just jump into the closest vibrational body. We see this a ton in car accidents, hospitals, things like this. Okay. Oh, I'm going to circle back. So the first type of walk-in I talked about where we have these contracts, I've also seen this in hospitals. Have you guys ever heard those stories where somebody dies and then they come back to life and they don't remember who they are? Sometimes this is literally their walk-in doing a switch. And you'll know if they do this process because the being who steps forward second will feel slightly more enlightened than the first. In that scenario, we know it's a contract, like a carry forward contract to keep the vessel going. There's some kind of soul bond story that they both have agreed to carry out. If somebody passes away and another soul jumps in and they forget who they are and it's hugely traumatic, then we know this is a vibrational match walk-in and there's an issue. But I mean, at the end of the day, if we became a beacon, I mean, maybe we chose that too. Okay, I'm just gonna look at the comments here. Thank you, Christina. And Tina, is this the case with ayahuasca? Listen, when we are using plants medicinally and not abusing them, meaning we are not using them every single day. We are not using them to alter us, to keep us in a certain state, but we are going because we are honoring the experience and the journey, then no, it doesn't apply. But if you are somebody who is using marijuana every single day because you need that numb out, because you need it to sleep, because whatever it is, then yes, it is a problem. I hope that makes sense. So if we are in reverence of that plant medicine and energy and the light codes and the frequencies that come through it, totally different story. Going into ceremony, totally different story. It's when it becomes habitual and it's becoming a crutch that we have a problem. Okay, I hope that clarifies that question. Thank you. Yeah, Karen, that is so true. So Karen shared a story here. She says, I lost consciousness when I was raped at 3, and a walk-in took over, so I didn't have to see what was happening. So that happens in that first scenario, like I was explaining, where sometimes we know we're coming into a very heavy family line. A lot of us who are the star seeds came in because we are completely here to literally lighten the lines. Okay, that's what we're here for. Lighten the family line, lighten the ley lines, lighten the cords and contracts, lighten the Akashic records. And so what can happen is we will bring with us another being that sometimes registers the trauma. I'll give you an example out of my own life. Hopefully this will ground this down. So as a child, I grew up in a very interesting household where my parents were very much unhappy, and there was a lot of physical, mental, emotional abuse that went on. And my sister and I's experiences of this were very different. My experience coming out is I was able to stand on my own 2 feet, be independent, step into what I wanted to do. And I don't emotionally remember many of the triggers that my sister registered from that very same upbringing with the very same parents in much of the same circumstances, especially when we were little. In my scenario, I had another being with me who took the registration of the trauma so that my soul didn't have to carry it, and I could get through to my job faster. So I could wake up faster, so I could be a light bearer faster. My sister's being still was processing the lessons, and we'll go into this a little bit later, but my sister is what we would call a virus person, and she registered every single amount of trauma, not only to her physical vessel, but to her soul story. So it was a very different experience. So we can bring these beings with us because we say, hey, I'm coming in here, I'm going to Earth School, I'm coming to help the people, this being is here, they help carry the load. One of the ways you'll know this might be true is that you may have gone through a very traumatic upbringing with a lot of abuse, a lot of stories, but you've become an absolutely resilient adult who is here to work magic now. So this is one of the ways you might know that that could be true. Hi, Sherry. Trish, so if you remove the walk-in, does it naturally follow that serotonin levels will rebalance itself and therefore no need for meds? For example, borderline personality disorder. Okay, so now we have to talk a little bit about the 2 models we were talking about in decodes, Trish, where we have the upward causation model, which says that in science and allopathic medicine, everything depends on elementary particles and atoms and molecules and hormones and synapses to correct. And then we have to contrast the downward causation model where we go consciousness creates everything. So from the consciousness level, if we go and remove a walk-in, technically, if that person was willing to do a quantum leap with their healing and they were willing for it to be what we call discontinuous, meaning they literally just zip from here to here without having to have all the in-between, then yes, we could totally take them off the meds. They would be just fine and a totally new person. And I have plenty of clients who have done just that. But if this person is still of the mindset and the being that they need their life to be continuous, they need everything to make sense, they need a linear journey, and they're not willing to do the leap, then this would be somebody that we would have to work on weaning down the meds and doing neuroprogramming. So this would be things where we would have to integrate new sets of skills and behaviors and supportive ideologies around them so that they could maintain the changes. I have a really interesting story, and this was one within my first week of when this download stuff or walk-in stuff downloaded into my being. I had a woman come forward to me who had multiple personality disorder, and this woman had a total of 6 walk-ins, 6 different personalities, 6 individual beings with her. Like, I am just amazed at what she was able to still do in her waking life, because oh my gosh, that is a lot. So this woman had been in and out of psychiatric wards and institutions. This is somebody who was heavily medicated. Somebody referred her to me for, I don't gosh knows why, because at the time this was not something that I was doing widely or loudly or really even advocating for. And she came to me, and I was able to pick up on the walk-ins. I could see all these different faces. They were literally transposing on top of her face, and I couldn't remember her name. So every time a new face would come, I would call her by a new name. Maybe some of you guys have had that, where it's like people think your name is something other than it is. It could be a walk-in, and it could be a past life thing. So you could use the truth testing, which that course is launching today, going up into your library. So you guys will have some tools to do that. So keep an eye out for that email. But anyway, she had these 6 beings with her, and I went, oh my gosh, she was so heavily medicated that I knew I wasn't going to be able to do anything. So what I did is I took the first 3 walk-ins that were willing to cross over and exit out of her system while she was on the meds. And then I said to her, look, you're going to have more space, but in order for us to go to the next part, I need your body clean and clear for like 24 hours. We can put you back on after those 24 hours, but I just need that little edge off to really grab the edge of consciousness for 24 hours. So I took her off the meds and had her come to my office again, and we were able to get the other 3 walk-ins to cross over and out. The next day, she was able to come off completely all of her anti-anxiety, depression, antipsychotic medication. She's never gone back on. She's a thriving human being, healer. She has a 6-figure business now. Like, she's totally fine. It's like nothing ever happened. So I'm totally in this space now where I'm like, is any of this reality that we experience even real? Like, how much of this is trauma? How much of this is just energetic? Like, I've really been shown time and time again.
It's freaking crazy. Like, wouldn't it be such a shame if, yeah, it's true, this is how deep the spiritual battle goes, and everybody that I've seen suffering and everybody who's dealing with mental disorder issues are actually dealing with dark energies or even light energies, multiple soul stuff like the Indigo 3s have going on. Like, this stuff is so serious. And this is why they're feeding us to Big Pharma, so that we can just be medicated and not get to the root of our problems, and they could feed off of our energies. Makes me sick.
Time again, how much we can create and uncreate with this energy work. Okay, Ashley's asking, hold on. I have to scroll back up here. Okay, Jackie is just sharing that when she had her walk-in removed, it was such a freeing experience. It so is. It's like the best and most amount of space you will ever experience in your life. It's phenomenal. Ashley's sharing, are walk-ins aware that they have died and are now in a different body? Good question. The answer is sometimes. Some of them are highly aware because they're contracted to be there, but the contract is very clear, and it's almost like a Groundhog Day where they're on this loop, and their being doesn't create a deeper Akashic record like ours does. They stay on the same trajectory at the time of the contract being placed and the time of birth. So once we come in at birth, their contract is sealed, and that's all there is to it. So we can sometimes go so far in our spiritual journey that we bypass the need for that contract. And this is where we see a lot of these beings with walk-ins, like humans that are here today, getting so frustrated because they feel like they just can't get ahead. They feel like nothing's making sense to them. They feel like, I just threw my pendulum and broke it. They feel like things are just not going together properly for them. So yeah, it's a really interesting concept. A lot of the ones who are vibrational matches, either coming in from narcotic abuse or these near-death or death experiences, a lot of them do not know they are dead. And so one of the very first questions I often have to go and ask when I start channeling or, going into kind of like mediumship with these beings is, do you know you're dead? Like, do you know you don't have your own body? Because if they don't, that's the first thing we have to register to their system before I can cross them over. Okay, Kathleen's asking, is this why I don't carry trauma? I've had lots. Yes, totally. This is a great example of where we have a walk-in that has probably taken the brunt of what happened and registered the emotion trauma so that you could just step forward and do what you needed to do in this life. Super good question. Okay, I am going to jump forward again with a little bit more information. So those are the first two types of walk-ins, where we make these soul bonds and we come in together and we have these near-death or narcotic experiences where they come in. So there's 2 and 3. Then we have another type of walk-in that we call the original occupant. And with the original occupant, sometimes what we do is we will hire another being, another person who has gone farther in their spiritual work and can come in to a family line and start lightening the line. In this scenario, what happens, so I'm just going to say it's me. Let's say I'm the more enlightened being. I come into the family with the other person who was supposed to be genetically, DNA, ancestrally hooked in, born to these people. I come in with them. My soul overrides it because I come in stronger and hotter at this time. And I start going to work. What I'm going to feel is that I don't fit in. I don't make sense to my family. Somehow their beliefs are all wonky to mine. How did I turn out like this when they're all like that, right? I'm going to have a very different registry of what I think is going on versus what my family plays into. So our beliefs will be very different. We will feel like we can't wait to get away from home. Oftentimes in these lightening of the lines where we have an original occupant scenario, we again will have that like angel on one shoulder, devil on the other, proverbial, so to speak, where we feel like, oh, I don't know where to go. But at some point we just surge ahead. So that's another type. In this type, it's our job as the walk-in. So we become the walk-in, and we may have done it from a galactic starseed level, but most of the time we don't. Most of the time we hire a better integrated human than us who has gone farther into the awakening work than us. It's our job to clear the Akashic records of that family line and to clear all ancestral cording and contracting to free them from the draconian bardos. So there's that type. So now we're at number 4. Yes, you will be able to watch back for sure. And is there a way to tell if you have a walk-in with you? Would you always know? So I am going to be releasing a truth testing little mini video lesson this afternoon. I'm just actually waiting for the videos to render up into your guys' accounts. So I will send an email when that's ready. So what you could do is you could start playing with the truth testing on super mundane things like, should I eat an apple or an orange? Should I wear pink or gray? And get your system going. And then you can ask, truth, am I the only soul in this body? Most of you, when you ask that, are going to go, nope. and it's so common, so don't freak out. And in fact, it's pretty cool because this is another one of the ways that we can learn a ton about ourselves, where we've been, why we're here, and it can help us figure out another layer to what our mission is and what we came here to do. In fact, most of us who are really trying to figure out our starseed missions will never get to it until we clean up our human level missions. So this is one of the fantastic ways that we can start to understand if we were a highly evolved soul that came in with a family and we're here to clean up the ancestral karma, or we need to, lighten the load for this family. Once we get that out of the way, things just go boom, 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 boom. The lights come on and it's like we do this radical shift. Really good question. I love that. Okay, my weekly meditation group has suggested to me that I may be one. How do you know? So again, we want to go and do the truth test.
This goes on for another 10 minutes, and I just don't want to. But this stuff is so serious. Like, this is literally, what the hell is going on with everybody? Pretty wild stuff. My ex that I testified against, who subscribed to me. It's funny, I have 2 exes subscribed to me. Neither of them like me. I don't know why they don't just, like, not be on my page. But anyway, his mom was like, oh, buddy. His mom was like, everybody thought she was, like, straight up possessed. And, yeah, she probably was by, like, some really, really dark entities. And she was a heavy drinker. Super alcoholic. Ended up, like, leaving her family and being homeless and, like, choosing to be homeless out in, like, a hurricane and stuff. Like, but, yeah, was, like, super Bible-y and would never do anything but, like, try to get exorcised. Like, they did, like, multiple exorcisms on this woman, and they didn't work. Yeah, because it's not something you go get exorcised out of you by some priest. Like, no, they're not gonna help. Spiritual help. And, he doesn't look like he's on a path much different. What's going on, Bubba? Coughing. He hasn't coughed in, like, a while. But, yeah, he got super into drinking and ended up in court because he mishandled his kid and, threw the mother of his child's postpartum in her face on the stand. But, you know, when we were together and we were talking again, he was out visiting family in another state and started hearing voices telling him to wait till he's alone, and he did all kind of messed up stuff on that trip. It was, like, definitely the end of us talking. He thought it was a good idea to get drunk and get duped by some cam girl who wasn't a cam girl. She was a scam artist, and he ended up pleasing himself on camera, drunk with some chick, but the chick was a guy, and he was like, give me $1,000 or I'm sending these pictures to everybody. And so he had pictures of himself sent to everybody like a jack off, because karma. But yeah, I highly recommend this chick's channel too. I mean, there is literally just so much information, and you're supposed to be able to look at it all and take what resonates with you, because everybody has a lot of information. And all right, I'm done with this. I'm gonna go check on him. Poor bugger, but seems like she got a lot of good shit on here.